Alrighty, what are we doing today?
I was thinking today we could go through our documentation management feature we want to build. So we've got this feature in Box where you can use AI to automatically generate all of your documentation and tutorials. But currently our customers don't have any way to put that into their application, and they're asking for it. One of the things they're asking for in particular is a way to have AI answer questions about their application. So their client can have a question about the software, put it in, and get an answer back straight away. So I think that would be a really cool thing to show people how to do in Box.
Okay. Well, to do that, let's first create a work order.
Cool.
All right. Let's call it documentation MVP.
Perfect.
And then what do you want to do for the description?
I think the description can just be the features we want in it. So it'll be the ability for their clients to see the documentation. So viewing documents, managing documents, and AI questions and answers is the big three things we want to cover.
Alrighty, let's lay out all of our features first. So the first feature that we wanted to do was the help chat that will integrate into our client's software, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much the main feature. So that's the AI questions and answers.
Yep, so I'm just going to call that help chat, and then we do AI questions and answers.
And that'll integrate with the client software. I think we should put that in the description as well, just so it's super clear.
Cool.
And then the next feature we'll need is like a way for the client's user to view the documents. So the actual tutorials. So allowing the client's users to view and navigate through the software's documentation is a really good description for that. Awesome. Then the next feature is pretty straightforward. We're going to need some way for our clients to manage their documents, so to see what tutorials they've got put in.
Yep, so documentation management.
Yeah, and one of the things I want with that is for it to be able to support multiple translations. So we want it to be localized, so you can have like Spanish and Hungarian and Chinese for all of your documentation. So the description would be where the clients view and manage the documentation of their software, and then I would just put at the end like including multiple languages, so it's super clear. And then the other thing that I want is, so from the technical design perspective, I want to cache these questions because I kind of know that in order to have these answers be really like valuable and correct, we're going to need to use a higher end model, which is going to be more expensive. So I want to have some way for us to cache these answers. So instead of generating a new answer every time someone asks the same question, we can reuse that answer and we can reuse it across all the different languages as well. So in order to enable that and to make it transparent, I think we need a help questions list, which would be a list of all the questions that clients have asked about the software. So where clients can see all the questions their users have asked and the answers that have been generated. And they'll have the ability to edit the answers in there. So allowing them to edit the answers is probably a good thing to tack on the end of the description.
Okay.
And I think that's pretty much, that's everything that we need for the MVP. We've got a way to view and edit and then also get analytics data as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's move on to the spec tool. So do you want to start with the help chat and we can work out all of the actions that our users are going to need to be able to take?
Yeah. Let's start with the managing the documents, because I think we can work backwards from there and it'll be a bit clearer.
All right, so I'm just going to skip over to documentation management.
Yep. I think the first action we need is that our users, which is our clients, are going to need a way to see and edit the content of a document.
Okay, so let's make an action group and call it editing documents.
Yeah, perfect.
So what do they need to be able to do?
So the first thing they need to be able to do is they need to be able to see and edit the content of a document.
Okay, so user can see and edit content of the document. What else?
And the next action would be that they need a way to see and edit the name of the document. And then the users are going to need a way to save the changes that they make to a document.
Yep.
And like I said earlier, we want to enable multiple languages. So they're also going to need a way to navigate between the languages that are available for each document. As part of that, if there's no content for a specific language, the user will see a warning that the tutorial is going to default to English if someone asks this question or tries to view this document.
Okay, so if there's no content for a selected language,
user will see a warning message that it will default to the English version when shown to a user. And then the one last thing we need to consider before we can be done with this editing document feature is when a document is edited, that's going to mean that all of the questions that we have cached may need to be regenerated. So to make that super easy for one of our customers, I think we should have a button that says that they can mark all the questions that are linked to a document as needing to be regenerated on the next time a user asks the question. So on the next time it's prompted.
okay, so user can mark. How would you write
Let's
that
say
out?
user can mark all questions linked to a document as needing to be regenerated when prompted.
Anything else?
Yeah, so in order to find these documents and manage them, we're going to need some sort of like sidebar, like a content list. So that'll have,
Okay.
I'm imagining these documents will be stored in folders so you can organize it by like the core features of your software. But then also we want to do a folder and document system because it's more flexible than tying it to screens or any of the things that we already use in DevInAbox to organize software. We want it to be flexible. So
Yeah.
I think the first action there is the user is going to be able to see a list of all the folders and documents that are within their software that they're providing documentation for. And I think those folders are going to be expandable and collapsible, so we can show and hide the documents within, so it's a bit easier to navigate. Yep, and then you just have the simple action of imagining a user can just click on a document on the sidebar, and that's what will open up the content. And then the user's going to need to be able to add a folder and add a document, so 2 different actions.
Yeah, and they also need to be able to delete each, don't they?
Yes. And if they're deleting a document, they should probably get a "Are you sure?" message, like just before we delete it because it's linked to all the documents and all that sort of stuff. So some sort of confirmation.
You probably want that on the folder as well because by deleting the folder, you'd be deleting the documents within, right?
Yeah, and I think we should make that clear as well in the action, is that this is going to delete all your documents within the folder.
Cool. Let me just copy this up.
Now, I think beyond the MVP, we might add stuff like the ability to move documents in and out of folders by dragging them. But I think for the MVP, this is a good enough set of actions for us to give it to our clients and have them test out this functionality, see if it works well for them.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, we're also going to need a way for the user to navigate to the help questions list from within the documentation manager.
Okay, I'm going to put that into a new actions list that's just for navigation because I imagine we'll probably be adding more general navigation later on.
Yeah. And we're also going to need a way, and I think this should be another action group, of managing languages. So we talked about essentially these documents can be in any language that the customer wants to define it. And I think a future update we manage translations for them, but for now it'll all just be manual. So they need a way to see a list of the languages that they're currently supporting in their documentation.
Yep.
And then they need a way to add a language. And I think it would be good to have this be a free input field rather than a drop down. But yeah, user can add a language, and that will apply the language to all documents, so that you will now be able to add the translation in the document file.
Yep.
And then they'll need to remove a language.
Yeah.
And I think the way this will work is instead of like deleting the content, it'll just stop it from being visible any longer for users and for the editor. But if they add the language back later, it'll become visible again.
All right, I'll just put in won't delete content in language.
But hide.
Will only hide.
I think that's worth doing because the storage is going to be minimal for this stuff, and it's going to be way more frustrating if they delete and then they need to kind of bring it back later.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there anything else on this?
I think that's features done. So we've got way to manage languages, we've got the navigation of the help bar, and then we've got the simply the way to edit the content. That's perfect.
Shall we go through and add our functions?
Yeah, let's go through and add our functions.
Okay, let's start here at managing language first. So user can see a list of languages in the documentation. We really just need the language names, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else for this one?
No, that's perfect. We just need the language names.
All right. User can add a language. So we want a language input field.
Yep. And I like the way that the AI suggestion has said apply language button. I think that's probably the language that we'd be looking for around that.
Cool. And then user can remove a language. Just a remove language button.
Yeah. And maybe we also put a confirmation message in there as well. I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay. I would also want it so that we actually give them a new styling in the list. So we still display it in the list, but we show it as something that's been removed. So they know that there's content somewhere for it.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good idea. Yeah, let's do that.
Cool. All right, let's go from the top now. So user can see a list of all folders and documents that are within their software. So we're going to need a folder name and then just documentation name.
Yeah.
A document name. User can expand and collapse. So we're going to need a let's say drop down toggle. And then we're also going to need the drop down content so we can know that we can use that expanding functionality. And then we'll also, I don't think we actually need anything else here. We just need a toggle and content to open and close it. And then user can open a document to view and edit its content. This is where I would put in a text link for that documentation, for that document, sorry.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I would also argue that it would also be really valuable to have a current document like styling, so we know which document we're currently looking at within that content list.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. No, that's awesome.
Cool. And then user can add a folder. I just say a new folder button, new folder name input.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on how we want to do it, because we could do it that way, or we could do it so it adds it and it calls it new folder, right? And then they can click on it and edit the name of the folder. I don't know, what's your perspective as a UI designer?
Either way, we will need a input field functionality in there. So that's just about how you design the user flow later on as a UX designer. But the functionality still, there still needs to be a place where we input that name.
Okay, let's keep
so
it
the
that
functions stay the same. Yeah. And then adding a document will do the same. Let's write this one in. So add document button and a document name input field. And then user can delete a folder. Just need a delete folder button, and we'll do a confirm delete and a cancel delete button for that confirmation. Cool. And then user can delete a document, do exactly the same thing. Delete document button, cancel dialog, confirm dialog.
Cool.
So editing the document. User can see and edit the content of the document. We just want to do, it in Markdown format, don't we?
Yeah.
So document text in Markdown. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
And then to edit the name, we just need document name input.
Yep.
And then to save the changes, we just need a save button. And I'll also add in a cancel button here. Then to navigate between the languages. See, this is going to be a big question for the UI UX designer as to how we organize these languages. But I think for now, I'm just going to do language selection button.
Yep. I think that makes sense.
Because there's 110 different ways you could slice and dice this, depending on what works best. And then if there's no content for the selected language, user can see a warning message that will default to English version when shown to their user. So we're just going to put in a warning message, I would say.
Yep, perfect.
And then user can mark all questions linked to a document as needing to be regenerated when prompted. So we will want a mark all questions button. And I also want to put in a timestamp.
No, that's a really good idea because it means that we can, it'll be easier for them to tell when they last did it. And also
so
for
a
us as well, because I
timestamp.
imagine we'll be doing some of this for them.
Yeah, so a timestamp for when their last marked is generated for regeneration.
Yeah.
Cool. And then navigation, we've done all of these manage. Navigation, I'm just going to put
Just
link.
a text link.
Simple. Cool. Is that everything for this feature?
Yeah, that's everything. I think maybe we move on to help questions list and really just lay out what the admin portal is going to look like. Because then I think the user portal will make a lot more sense to people.
Yeah, cool. So what do we need here?
So the first thing we're going to need is the user needs to see a list of all of their questions. So that can be a group because there's a few actions in it. Yep, so questions list.
Mm-hmm.
And the first action is user can see a list of all the questions that have been asked in the help chat. But in brackets, similar questions will be grouped together. So on the back end of this, I want to use a vector database so that when someone asks a question that has very similar meaning, like how do you create a user and how do you create a user, how do you add a user, those get grouped together instead of being the same question gets regenerated over and over again when it has the exact same meaning.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
All right. Was there anything else on this list?
They're going to need to be able to see, to navigate to see the details of a question from within the questions list.
Yep.
Okay, and then you'll have a questions details group. We're done here. That's the only two actions we need for the questions list.
Okay. So question details.
And then the first action is they're going to need to be able to see the master text, which will be English in this case, because we'll produce the documents in English and then it'll be translated into other languages. So that'll be like the core of the document, the original document. And most of our customers are English speaking first. So I think that makes sense for it to be the primary language. And then the other action that we need is the user can see all the different variations that have been asked. So again, this is linking back to that semantics vector database functionality, where we can see all the different variants of how this question can be worded and how it's been grouped together.
Yeah.
Then the user is going to need a way to see and edit the saved answer for the question in each language.
For each language, did you say?
Yeah, for each language. So they can edit the English, they can edit the Hungarian, they can edit the Spanish.
So they're also going to need to be able to navigate between those two languages, right?
Yes, yeah. And they'll need to be able to see all the available languages that they can select as well.
So I've got user can navigate between languages to see the saved answer for each.
Yeah, perfect. Then the last action I think we need on this group is I really want to bring some basic analytics in so people can get an idea of what questions being asked the most. So I think the user can see a counter of how many times a question has been asked.
Okay. Cool. Is there anything else in this group?
Yeah, I think this I'll ask you now if this needs to be in a separate group, but underneath the question details, I want to also include a list of all of the linked documents. So that's like all the documents that are relevant to this question that was asked, which will also be the documents that are shown to the user when the question is asked. Do you think that should be in the question details or in a separate group?
We can put it in the questions details. That's fine.
Okay. So the user can see a list of documents that the question is related to is the first action.
Yep.
And the other two actions are really simple. It's just they can link a document, so they can add a new document to this list, or they can remove a document from the list.
User can link a new document to the question, and user can remove a linked document.
Perfect. Yeah, that's 100%. I think that's all of the actions that we need for the help questions list. So do you want to do the functions now?
Yeah, definitely. Let's start with the question details. So user can see the master question text in English. So we just need master question text.
Yeah.
Cool. User can see all the variations of the question that has been asked. So just question variation text.
Yep.
And then we've got user can see and edit the saved answer for each language.
Yep. So they're just going to need some way to select.
Yeah, so I'm just going to do answer text input. And then the actual navigation between languages is happening in this action. So they can navigate between. Yeah. So again, I don't know how specifically you would lay this out, but I'm just going to do language selection button like we did with the documents. I imagine it'd probably be the same interface kind of a thing. And then user can see a counter for how many times a question has been asked. We just do counter of occurrences.
Perfect.
Spell it correctly helps. And then user can see a list of documents that the question is related to. So we're just going to want document name. And then we have user can link a new document to the question. I imagine this is probably most likely going to come from a dropdown for the sake of saving space. Yeah. So let's pop this in here now. So we need a dropdown toggle so we can activate that dropdown. And then we need the dropdown content so we can open and close it. And then we're going to need a link to select document.
Is there some way to make this dropdown searchable?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We can filter list by text input.
Perfect.
Filter list by text input. And then we'll also, I think we'll leave it like that for now. The UX designer can finesse this and work out what else we need. But I will add in a add new document button as well.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Whether that becomes before or after the drop down, I'm not sure, but we can clear that up later.
Well, it'd be really helpful for, say, they want to add like a new document that specifically addresses that question. They could do that.
Yeah. Oh, you mean as in creating a new document?
Yeah, like creating a new document.
Oh, okay, I meant as in linking a new document.
Oh, okay. You know, well, that's an interesting idea. Maybe we should have her create a new document button as well, because you might want to create a tutorial right then and there that's linked.
Yeah. Okay.
For part of that question.
So let's call this create a new document button, right? And then we'll take from what suggestion here, which is new document link button.
Yeah, that's really
That'll
good.
link the new one, and then this is, and I'm just going to put in parentheses so it's super duper clear. Creating a new blank document.
Awesome.
And documentation. What do we call it? Documentation management is what it's called, isn't it? Something like that. Close enough. Cool. All right. That's a good idea. All right. And then we just want to be able to remove a document, which is super easy. I think you just remove.
Yeah, the AI nailed it. We need to remove that.
That one's easy. And then under the list, we've got user can see a list of all questions that have been asked in the help chat. So we talked about we wanted to use the master question list, question text, as like the list list item. Yeah. And then we wanted to also show the counter of occurrences. So how many times this question has been asked within the list. We also talked about we wanted to sort this list by default how many times a question has been asked, didn't we?
Yeah. So follow the 80-20 principle of like, well, whichever question has been asked the most is the one that we should prioritize first.
Yeah, so I'm just going to do sort list by most asked question to least. And then there was something else, wasn't there? Did we want to show, because we haven't gotten to it yet, but in the help chat, we're going to let people rank, basically rate thumbs up or thumbs down, helpful or not helpful, whether that response helped them. Do we want to show that in the list of questions?
Yeah, I think that's really, really important.
Okay, so let's say helpful counter and then not helpful counter. And I think that's actually probably something we need to put in the details as well.
Yeah, it's something we missed, which you're right, we should definitely add in. Because they need to see how many times the question's been asked, but they're also going to need they're going to need some level of detail of some way to point out whether the question is helpful or unhelpful. I can hear Marvy in the background.
Can you pause for a second? Marvy,
Yeah.
sit down. Down. Oh, wait. My coworker is being quite disruptive.
The head of HR, who's just not happy with the video.
Excuse me, sir. Is there cats that you would like to get instead? Be quiet, okay? You steady? Okay. You be there. Quiet. Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, so we're saying we need a way to basically, it's really useful for them to see how many times the question's asked, but they also need to know whether a really good signal for whether the answer is any good or not.
User can see helpful and not helpful ratings.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it.
Shall we do each answer because we've got multiple answers across different languages?
Yeah, I think so. I want to see how helpful it is in Spanish versus how helpful it is in English. I think that's a really good distinction. Because that could also tell us if our translations are not wrong. Because we have a few clients that probably just use AI translations, and it may or may not line up with what a native speaker would expect.
Exactly. For the sake of keeping this all nice and tidy and clean, I'm actually going to pull those linked documents out into their own action group because they are kind of a separate functionality, kind of a separate idea kind of a thing.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Just to keep everything really precise and tidy. Cool. All right. And then last thing here is the navigation link. So I'm just going to put link. Is there anything else in this feature you can think of?
No, I think that's pretty much good. Shall we head on to view documents? And we'll do help chat last.
Okay. Viewing documents. This is for our clients' users. So this is access through the API, I would say.
Yeah. Well, so basically we're going to integrate it directly into the client's application.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to need a way to view documents as the first big group of actions I think we need to deal with. So the user is going to need to be able to see the contents of the document. And they're also going to need to be able to see select their display language as well, because they might need to switch between, say, English and Spanish. And as part of that, I'd also like to put an action in that makes it clear that the user's language is going to be inherited from the client's software. So we're going to pass it as a variable to our integration. So it knows, look, if the client's using Spanish in the app, it'll use Spanish in the documentation. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then again, like we said in the document manager, if there is no content in their native language, it'll default back to English. So if no document content available for selected language, user will see the English version instead. I think that makes sense.
Yep.
And then we basically just need that the user can navigate through a list of documents by the sidebar.
Okay. Let's pull that into something separate. So let's go let's do content list again. And user can navigate because I imagine that we're going to want a similar thing, right, where it's sorted into folders if they want to navigate the whole thing. So let's mimic what we did before. So user can see a list of folders and documents in software's documentation. And then user can expand collapse folder to show documents contained within. And then lastly, we're going to want user can open a document to view it. Make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I think that's pretty much it for that feature. We just need a way for them to be able to view the documents and navigate through a sidebar list.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do we want them, because do we want to show, sorry, this might not be an MVP thing, but do we want to show within the document closely related documents, or is that too much?
No, for now, let's leave that out. I think it's valuable information for when you're answering the AI questions. But right now, I think for the MVP, we can keep this to just, if they're viewing a document, it's to view that document.
Yeah. Okay. Let's quickly do the functions then. So these will be the same with the folder name and the folder document. Sorry, the document name.
Yep.
In the list. And then we've got a toggle and a content for opening and expanding the folder. And then we need a link to open said document. Then we've got user can see the contents of the document. So we're going to want to see the document name.
And then we also want to markdown content again.
Yeah, the markdown content again. Let's call it document content. And we'll do markdown format.
Perfect.
Cool. And then selecting the display language. I'm just going to assume that this is going to happen in a drop-down because that's pretty standard for language selection.
Yeah.
So link to select language and then current language displayed as well.
And then the language list will come from the document management tool.
Okay, so we don't need that as an additional function here.
No.
And then language is inherited from the client's software. So just do language variable.
Yeah, that's basically the best way to do something that's a bit more software related and not user interface related. It's just this is the variable that we need passed.
Yeah, cool. And then if there's no content selected language, the user will see the English version instead. What should we put here?
I think an error message is a really good suggestion that the AI has done. Primarily because I think this is more of a functional thing, but we do want a visual thing to be like, hey, this is why you're getting English. I think we'll localize those error messages as well to some extent.
Okay, so I do an error message and I say localized. Well, yep. I'll do in language selected. Is there any other functions that we need here to cover the action of defaulting?
I think that covers off the language of defaulting.
Okay. Cool. So that's that feature done?
Yep, perfect. Okay, so we're off to the last feature, which is the help chat, which starts with a really simple action of they need a way to talk to the AI. They need to be able to send a message.
So a chat interface?
Yeah. So yeah, you have the chat interface, and then there also will be the large language model component to this.
Okay, so the user needs to be able can write and send a message to the LLM?
Yeah. Asking a question about how to use the software.
Cool.
And then the other action is the user is going to need to be able to see the large language model's response to their question.
And they also need to be able to see the messages that they've sent.
Yeah, 100%. That'd be a bit awkward.
One-sided conversation.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else?
Then we can bring in the helpful, not helpful buttons. So the little thumbs up and little thumbs down that we talked about.
Yep. So user can rate a response as helpful or not helpful.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then they're going to need a way to navigate to the linked documents. So the large language model is going to give them a bunch of linked documents that are references to how it answered its question. And the user needs to just be able to click to open those up.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if this needs to be in a separate group, but we're also going to need a way for them to select the language. And this will also inherit the language from the client software.
Okay. I'll do it here. So user can select the language they want to communicate in, because that'll also affect how the LLM is responding to them, right?
Yep.
Cool. And then language is inherited from client software.
Perfect. Yeah.
Do you want to just do the functions for these first, and then we'll go on to the LLM actions?
Yeah. I think that's a good way to end it. Let's do it.
So user can write and send a message to the LLM. So we want a message input field and
And
a
send
send
button.
button. Do we also want a loading indicator as that as the LLM works on its response?
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion because of the way these messages are going to be sent, they're not going to be streamed in, so there will be a loading time.
Yeah, cool. All right, and then user can see the LLM's response. We just want response text.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming markdown format.
Yeah, everything's Markdown. Markdown is beautiful. It's light.
Okay. And then sent message text. I'm assuming in markdown as well.
I think you assume correct.
Markdown is superior, apparently. And then we've got user can rate and response helpful or not helpful. We're just going to do helpful rating button, not helpful.
Yeah, good AI suggestions. Again, it's on fire today.
It is. User can navigate to a linked document. We'll just do link.
Yep.
And then user can select a language they want to communicate in. I, again, am going to assume that this is going to happen via a drop down. So essentially, I'm just going to put in exactly what I did on the last page. So link to select a language and then current language displayed.
Perfect.
Cool. And then language is inherited. I'm just going to do language variable. And before we jump into doing the LLM, I just realized that over in our documentation management, under editing document, under see and edit the name, I want to make this field required so then we never have any unnamed documents.
That's a really good idea.
And I also think that we should bar people from duplicate document names, because I think that will really confuse our LLM.
Yeah, no,
And
that's a
possibly
really
our
good
user
point.
as well. So I'm going to do a duplication error message in here as well. All right, now going back, what do we need our LLM to do in our help chat?
Yeah, so the way we're going to lay this out, because it is quite technical, is just the basic building blocks. So the first action the LLM needs to manage is when it's prompted, the large language model needs to first check if there's any existing questions. And if there is any questions that match, it's going to just return the cached answer. So when prompted, the LLM will first check if there's an existing question that matches. And if there is a match, it will return that answer. So the second part of it is if there is no match, then it's going to generate a response using the software's documentation. And then it will save the question to the help questions list. So that's the caching mechanism at play. Because what we're essentially laying out here, so the audience understands, is we're building out the text solution. So in Dev-in-a-Box, anything that's this complicated, we just want to lay out the basic logic, and then an engineer is going to come in and really build a detailed explanation of how every little detail will work. But we just want to capture enough of what is our intent. So my intent is I want to cache these questions. And if I can use the cache questions, I want them to be used so it saves cost. Otherwise, I want to use a really high-end large language model to generate a really good response to the question.
Mm-hmm.
So my last action is that when a question is saved and its answer is stored in a vector database. So when a new question is saved, it and its answer is stored in a vector database.
So let's go through and do the functions here. So when the LLM is prompted, it first checks if there's an existing question that matches, and if there is a question, it will respond with the same answer. What kind of functions do we want here?
So we want vector database lookup. So this is when it's checking if there's any existing questions, it's going to do a vector-based lookup to see, hey, have I answered any questions that look similar to this in the past, and how have I answered?
Yeah, cool. And anything else?
That's it.
That's it.
Again, this is like something that will be worked out in more technical details. Where, from a high-end perspective, I know I want to use a vector database to do this.
Yeah, cool. So if there's no match, it will generate a response and then save it. What do we need here as a function?
So I probably want to use, at this time, the OpenAI API to generate the response. So I would just detail that so that the developer knows that I want to use that technology.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
That's pretty good. But in like the case of like I didn't know what technology I wanted to use, I would say like use a large language model provider to generate, use the best large language model provider to generate the response.
Yeah. Okay. And then the engineer would help you work out which one's best.
Yeah, they give you cost analysis, they would do tests, they would show you how it could work.
Cool. And then the last one, when a new question is saved, it and its answer is stored in a vector database. What function?
So I would just write save to vector database. So I know I want to use a vector database. I haven't decided which provider I want to use yet for this. So vector database is perfect. It starts the conversation that needs to be had about how does this solution actually function in reality.
Yeah, cool. All right. Anything else?
No, I think that pretty much covers it off. So that's everything you would need to build this software. That's all, the only input that's required from here. A dev in a box person would go through. We'd have a UI designer plan out these user interfaces and make them both spiffy, but also very functional. And then with the tech solution elements, you'd have an engineer come in. We'd work out what the constraints are and what the parameters are, and give you some proposals for how you could build that solution out.
Yeah. So throughout the blueprinting phase, the dev in a box team will go through and refine all of the functions. So more functions may be added to this specifically for with using the UIs. But yeah, it all gets planned out before you head into production, into clear blueprint with wireframes, user flow, everything basically.
Yeah. Well, you still have full control and visibility through the portal, so you can see exactly what's being added, and then you can choose to backlog stuff, and you can participate in that conversation and workflow. So it's a really easy way to build out a software plan that you know can be executed on really quickly.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
All right, well, we better go start building this thing, Devin.
Yeah, let's get to it. Our customers await.
Bye.
Bye, guys.